The silence of Svalbard wasn't empty. It was heavy. It pressed against the reinforced glass of the observation dome, a tangible weight of ice and isolation. Dr. Elara Vance sat bathed in the rhythmic blink of server lights, her coffee mug creating a ring of warmth on the cold steel desk. Outside, the sky was waking up. It started as a bruise of violet on the horizon, slowly bleeding into a vibrant, pulsating green. The Aurora Borealis. To the tourists who shivered in glass igloos miles south, it was a light show. To Elara, it was data. It was ionization, solar wind colliding with the magnetosphere, a violent chemical reaction painted by a master artist. But tonight, the data was wrong. System check, Elara murmured, her voice raspy from days of limited speech. All senses nominal. The automated voice of the station's AI, ION, replied. Magnetometer readings are stable. Elara frowned. The visual display of the electromagnetic waves usually looked like chaotic static, but for the last 3 nights, amidst the chaos, a pattern had emerged. It wasn't the jagged peaks of a solar flare. It was rhythmic, oscillating. It looked like a heartbeat, or, more accurately, a brainwave. She overlaid a standard EEG reading of a human in REM sleep over the atmospheric data, the curves aligned with terrifying precision. Orion, Elara said, her heart rate picking up. Isolate the frequency band between 4 and 8 hertz in the auroral stream. Filter out the background static. Processing, Orion replied. This will require significant processing power. Due it, the room grew colder as the station diverted power. On the main screen, the chaos vanished. Left behind was a single, glowing line that dipped and rose with a complexity that defied random nature. It wasn't just a wave, it was a sequence. Elara leaned in, the green glow of the screen reflecting in her eyes. She had spent her life studying the physics of the sky, believing the universe was math and matter. But as she watched the wave patterns shift in sync with the ribbon of green light dancing above the Arctic ice, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature crawled up her spine. The sky wasn't just glowing, it was thinking. 2 weeks later, the station was crowded with equipment. Elara had jury-rigged a neural decoder to the station's radio telescope dish. Her hypothesis, which she jokingly titled the Nemesini hypothesis in her private logs, was insane. She hadn't sent it to any review board. They'd think she'd lost her mind. The hypothesis was this: human consciousness generates a bioelectric field. When we die, or when we forget, that energy doesn't just vanish. It transforms. What of the memories we lose, the fading recollections of childhood? The face of a lover, the scent of a mother's perfume, what if they leak out? What if they rise like heat, drifting up through the atmosphere until they are caught in the Earth's magnetic net, igniting as they collide with solar winds? What if the northern lights were the burning library of humanity's forgotten past? Ready for injection? Elara whispered. She placed the headset over her ears. She wasn't just going to look at the data this time. She was going to listen. She was going to run the auroral frequencies through a neural translator and feed the output directly into her own mind. It was dangerous. It was reckless, but it was the only way to know. She slid the fader up. At first, there was only a high-pitched whine. Then, colors exploded behind her eyelid snot. The green of the aurora, but the sepia of old photographs. The smell of baking bread. The sensation of rough wool against a cheek. A voice, distinct and sharp, saying, "Wait for me by the river." Elara gasped, ripping the headset off. She fell back in her chair, hyperventilating. Those weren't her memories. She had never lived near a river. She hated wool. She looked up at the skylight. The aurora was raging, a storm of crimson and violet ribbons tearing across the stars. "Who are you?" she whispered to the sky. The breakthrough came when Elara realized the aurora wasn't just a dump. It was a cycle. She spent months cataloging the memories she could intercept. They were rarely grand historical moments. No kings signing treaties or generals commanding armies. The sky was filled with the mundane intimacy of human experience. A child learning to tie a shoe in 1954. A woman weeping quietly on a bus in Tokyo in 1998. The flash of fear in a soldier's eyes before the trench went dark in 1917. It was the cosmic dust of the soul. But Elara was looking for something specific. 7 years ago, her father, a brilliant neurologist, had succumbed to early onset dementia. He had lost everything, his research, his language, and finally, her. He died looking at his own daughter with the blank stare of a stranger. She needed to know if he was up there. She needed to know if the memories he had lost had been caught in the net. She refined the algorithm, creating a search parameter based on her father's biosignature from his medical records. It was a needle in a haystack, made of photons. Dr. Vance Orion interrupted. Solar flare warning. Classic is an impact. Imminent. Elara Vance. A Class 10 flare would supercharge the Aurora to unprecedented levels. It would be a tsunami of data. If Herr Vater Esako was up there, the storm would light it up. Divert all auxiliary power to the recorder, Elara ordered. I'm going to the observation deck. The sky did not turn green. It turned white. The radiation storm hit the atmosphere with the force of a hammer. The magnetic field buckled and sang. Standing on the observation deck, wrapped in thermal gear, Elara felt the air crackle. She engaged the portable interface she had built, a visor connected to the station's mainframe. Scanning, she commanded. The visual feed was blinding. A torrent of lives rushed past her eyes. She saw 1 million birthdays, 1 billion heartbreaks. It was beautiful, and it was terrifying. It was too much for one mind to hold. Focus. She gritted her teeth. Search parameter, Silas Vance. The sister word, struggling against the interference. A blue bicycle. The smell of antiseptic. A dog barking in the rain. Closer, she whispered. Tears freezing on her cheeks. Come on, Dead. Then, the sky tore open. A ribbon of pure, blinding magenta descended directly above the station. The visor screamed a match. Suddenly, the cold was gone. The station vanished. Elara was standing in a study that smelled of old paper and pipe tobacco. Dust motes danced in a shaft of sunlight. She knew this room. It was her father's office. And there he was, Silas Vance, sitting at his desk, not old and frail, but vibrant, his eyes sharp with intellect. He was writing furiously in a notebook. Dad? Elara called out. The memory construct didn't look up. This wasn't a ghost. It was a recording. It was the memory of the moment he realized he was losing his mind. Elara walked around the desk and looked over his shoulder. He was writing a letter. My dearest Elara, I can feel the fog rolling in. The equations are slipping away. Soon, the names will go to, but I need you to know this, before the light goes out. We spend our lives trying to be remembered. We build statues. We write books. But I realize now that forgetting is a mercy. The universe takes our heavy burdens so we can leave this world light as a feather. Don't mourn what I lose. Look up. It's all just changing form. Nothing is ever truly lost. I love you to the stars and back. Dad. He put the pen down and looked up, not at Elara, but through her, at the window where the sun was setting. A look of profound peace settled over his face. The fear was gone. The image began to fracture, the edges of the room dissolving into green mist. No. Stay. Elara reached out, her hand passing through his shoulder. The memory faded. The sunlight turned back into the harsh, freezing wind of the Arctic. The storm had passed. The Aurora was now a faint, ghostly shimmer. Elara sat on the metal grating of the deck, the visor in her lap. The silence of Svalbard had returned, but it no longer felt heavy. It felt clay, and she had the data. She had proof that the atmosphere was a repository of human consciousness. She could publish it, change the world, prove the afterlife was physical, atmospheric, visible. She looked down at the drive in her hand. If she released this, people would never look at the sky with wonder again. They would look at it with greed. They would try to mine the sky for secrets. Hack day dead. The sanctity of the great forgetting would be broken. Her father's letter was clear. Forgetting is a mercy. The Aurora wasn't a library to be raided. It was a graveyard to be respected. Elara stood up. Her heart was lighter than it had been in years. She walked to the edge of the railing. With a fluid motion, she threw the drive into the deep, frozen snowdrift below, where the shifting ice would bury it forever. She looked up one last time. A faint pulse of green winked at her. "Good night, Dad," she whispered. She turned and walked back into the warmth of the station, leaving the sky to keep its secrets, painting the night with the beautiful, fading echoes of everything that once was. Thanks for watching.